You want me here for Zombie Takeout, don't you? I've never really listened before. I was always too shy, but I decided I'd really like to listen with you. What's up? Welcome to episode 330 of Zombie Takeout. The B-Movie and Cult Movie Podcast. I'm Uncle John.
And I'm Scotto.
And before we get to this week's movie, we've got some listeners submitted. This is from Bodo on Twitter. He sent us a few things. First off, he said, I was looking up Martin and had a facepalm moment. George did Knight Rider. My God, I love that movie. And no, it's not the Hoff series from the 80s. It's a movie that Romero directed. I don't really know much about it. I'm going to have to check it out.
Yeah, I've heard of it too. Of course, with the same confusion of Knight Rider. Knight Rider. I also did a documentary on OJ, which even wasn't a horror story.
He also said, LOL, didn't know Colonel Sanders was from Pittsburgh. I had no idea what he was talking about until today when I watched the movie. I went back to copy these into my notes and almost fell out of my chair laughing when I saw that.
I've seen people characterize him as Colonel Sanders. I don't know. He's got like this,
It's a white suit.
Was he Polish? I forget.
Lithuanian, I think.
Lithuanian, okay.
He also said, I just noticed Martin only wears sunglasses at night when he's reading. Broad daylight, not so much. Guy just automatically went to a Corey Hart reference.
Right, exactly. So he can read.
And finally he said, damn, I lost a bet. I thought for sure they were going to play Mrs. Robinson at least once. And, that's the reference I think maybe one of our titles should reflected, but I don't know. I kind of prefer what we went with.
Yeah, we had some good titles this week.
I think that's going to be the outtake unless there's something particularly good. All right, so without any further ado, on to this week's movie, which is from 1978 or possibly 76 or 77, depends on the source. Martin, of course, this is our George A. Romero tribute. And that brings us to the impromptu plot summary, sponsored by Creepy Synthesized Movie Scores. They're not just for science fiction anymore.
And also brought to you by Nosferatu's Meat Market. Fresh steaks delivered to your home. All right, so we have a young man riding the trains across America. He sees a lovely young woman, and, he has some needles. You think he's going to, you think he's just going to rape her. Then he takes a razor out and starts slicing her arms.
Well, he kind of does both.
And starts drinking her blood. And that's pretty much how the movie begins.
Yeah, it's a nice cold open with just like the title and then this sequence.
Yeah. And so he's picked up by, I'm thinking...
Bodo really nailed it.
Is that his grandfather, they're saying?
Oh, yeah. It's his cousin.
His cousin.
Who is, I don't know, elderly, maybe 70s. And Martin is in his 20s. I did some math. A 40-year span between cousins is plausible.
Right. But he, of course, is claiming that Martin is actually elder.
Well, Martin, at one point in the movie, says he's 80, but we'll get to that.
Right. So he, of course, is convinced that Martin is, in fact, Nosferatu, who is older than himself, is a vampire, and he's going to somehow save his soul, or save
the town.
Save him somehow, save the town, of course, save everybody.
And I don't know if it was Pittsburgh exactly, but it was a town in Pennsylvania, in that general vicinity.
Yeah, and I didn't know Romero, that was his thing. Like everything was around Western PA.
Really? Because I checked, he was from New York, actually.
But a bunch of his films took place around there for that time period.
That might explain the states for a reference, which I thought was a very nice touch.
And so this kid is kind of a prisoner there, but he's not really. And it's kind of hard to describe what he goes through. But he, of course,
Well, if you cross Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer with Napoleon Dynamite, you kind of get this movie.
he 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 gathers a few relationships. One with an overnight DJ who's, of course, kind of pulling his leg, but kind of admiring him too at the same time.
Well, because Martin calls in saying he's a vampire and talking about how these conflicted feelings he has and all of this. And the DJ is playing along because it's entertaining, but you get the impression he doesn't really buy it.
Well, he starts out playing along, and then I think towards the end he's bought it. You know, he's totally like into it. You know, he's just like, no, man, you've got it. You do. You know, that whole thing at the end where the kid is, you know, talking about having a relationship and getting on with it, but the DJ's pretty much telling him to fuck it. And what you had was so pure and stuff. Like, wait, what? And of course, the other relationship was with a woman that was one of the meat market's customers that he was running deliveries for, and it turns into an affair. But that is, of course, what complicates his life, and he believes makes him sloppy, and also kind of cures him of his need to drink blood. Sort of. Right. Which we'll get into. Anyway. And it leads to his attempt to get some more blood, which goes pretty far south. About as sideways as possible. Yet he winds up... wow. There's a shootout. It's a whole thing. It's amazing. And then he lives and hilarity ensues. And when Romero died, I saw about 10 people recommend this on Twitter. Like, they were saying, you know, that their way of grieving was to watch this movie, and it's amazing. And now I understand why. Oh, definitely. Yeah, I'd kind of heard of it, but I was thinking... I hadn't heard of it at all. You know, we saw Night of the Living Dead. That's his masterpiece. Right. How could anything be better than that? And I didn't even look to see what I gave Night of the Living Dead, but damn. I think we did pretty well. I think we recommended it mostly. Oh yeah, I would think so too, because it is it is definitely the OG zombie story. Right, of course. And I can't tell you how many "They're Coming to Get You, Barbara" gifs I saw on Twitter as well. Now, the first thing that really struck me about this, aside from the cold opening, which I mentioned, is the score. It's all synthesizers and very atonal. Reminds me, of course, of every 70s sci-fi movie. And also The Warriors. Got to mention that. And I loved the idea of a vampire without fangs. Well, right. That's the remarkable thing about this. Vampires, up until this point, we're all noble, exotic creatures. Vlad. And then also putting a vampire in modern day middle America was fucking unheard of, honestly. I mean, he's a modern vampire with no fangs, and he's not cool. You know, he's not suave. He's not that guy. He's like just 70s he's this, vampires. Fuck up kid. 70s vampires before this, you have Dark Shadows, which, I mean, was I guess it was modern day, but it was kind of this bubble, very gothic anachronism. Yeah. Kolchak the Night Stalker, which is more of the Van Helsing side, where he's he's hunting him down in Vegas, and Blackula, which is in LA. Yeah. So to do this in Middle America with just some kid who's actually, God, the best way I can put it, it's a vampire story that's not glamorous. Right. And that is entirely the point, where it's like the movies get it all wrong, the magic and stuff. He constantly comments on how ridiculous vampires in the movies are, which I loved. Right. And the thing I really adore about this movie, it suggests that he's maybe not really a vampire. Right. That is the greatest part of this movie. And it leaves it completely open. You can take it either way. Exactly. You could debate either side, whether he's really a Nosferatu, or he's just this disturbed kid, or whether his cousin or grandfather, really just talked this idea so much as when he was a kid. Well, he was raised to believe that he was a vampire, and he's clearly mentally ill. Right. You could argue either way. I mean, he seemed to survive well without blood for a while. He said he was getting shaky.
Well,
but
that's
that's, of
just any
course,
addiction.
right. He was missing the rush of doing it.
Right.
Rather than the nutrients.
And that opening blood drinking scene was disturbing as hell.
Oh, man. Yeah. It looked so real.
In fact, during a screening an interview at USC, director George Romero related that the MPAA objected to a shot of Martin slicing someone's arm open with a razor blade in that opening scene. The entire shot would have earned the movie an X, so he had to cut it by several seconds. It was the length of the shot, not the subject matter.
And the shot was convincing, too.
Oh, yeah.
There was... at least watching it on my little window that I had at the time, it looked like he just fucking went right down. Like, oh wow, and he's doing it the long way too, so he's serious.
And there was actually a mistake in that shot. When he first goes to cut and it doesn't work, that was the actor messing up on the arm.
Oh yeah.
And he just went again and cut deeper. And he cut lengthwise, even though the drug was supposed to just knock her out and not hurt her. The idea was to drink from her and have her, live and, be fine the next day.
Now, the one nitpick that, of course, wanders into my mind when I see this, how effective is using a syringe on someone?
Mm-hmm.
Like
there
getting
are better
into
ways.
Their bloodstream and actually knocking them out with it.
Right.
While they're moving around, not like if you have someone strapped, of course, you can find a vein and do it.
Yeah. And how long it takes to take effect varies throughout the movie.
Right.
I think depending on, how much tension they want to build. But back to that opening scene, the intention is for her to live and, to survive the attack, and he just wants to drink from her.
Of course.
But he slices literally practically down to her elbow. And there's an old joke, and this is very, very morbid, and I apologize for it. But, slicing across your wrist isn't committing suicide, it's committing sideways. Because it's more effective if you go lengthwise, which is what Martin does. That would kill her.
Well, yeah, he's looking to kill.
But that was the point of using the syringe, was to not kill.
So he could do it. So he could drink the blood.
Well, maybe without a fight. But, later on, with that couple in the house, he lets her live.
He let her live because of the other guy being there.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, there was a mistake, perhaps.
He even said that. He said, I'm really not going to hurt you because he was here.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he lets her live because he's going to drink his blood instead. And which I'm not sure why he would let her live, but...
Right. Yeah, he's easily identifiable. That's the part I didn't quite get. Because they see his face.
But the other thing is, if you inject drugs into someone to knock them out, you're injecting into their bloodstream and then you're drinking the blood, would that knock you out too?
Yeah, that's a good point. You're
You're
not supposed to think about this stuff. But again, with that opening scene, the really disturbing part wasn't the blood drinking and the arm slashing. It was it's a violation. I don't know if it exactly was a rape. They weren't really clear on that. But he's kind of humping her lifeless body.
Oh, yeah. Well,
and
when he
cuddling up with it. And
when he talks about sex, he's talking about trying it for once without the blood.
Yeah, later on in the movie,
Which implies, he has been raping and drinking and eating at the same time.
He's really more of a serial killer than a typical vampire. I mean, you could argue that a vampire is a serial killer, but he's the classic movie serial killer.
You could say he's Count Chocula. Killer. No.
One of these days I'm going to get a mixer and a little rim shot sound effect. And then we meet Kuda, his cousin, his elderly cousin.
Now, which Colonel is he? Is he the extra crispy? Is he the Zinger, the Georgia? I don't know. I'm confused with this Colonel Sanders campaign.
He shows up in this all-white suit with this heavy accent, and he's kind of chewing the scenery.
And his 9 seasons of herbs and spices.
I thought it was 7.
No,
it's 11, I think. Anyway,
11, okay.
I'm a vegetarian. What do I know? But he seemed like just way too over the top for the kind of very serious tone of the movie up until that point.
Right.
He was kind of campy, but he grew on me. I didn't really mind it for much longer after that.
Well, right, especially his persistence.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of wonder, like, why did Martin go to him?
Yeah.
Like, why is he staying with this guy?
Well, I think I get the impression Martin kind of was accepting his fate as the family vampire who just needs to be restrained. Incidentally, when they go to the train station, Martin and his cousin, there's a scene in the bathroom that was completely pointless, but it had a moment in it that was incredibly cool. This guy sitting, in one of the stalls, lights a match on the button of his denim jacket. Never seen that before. Incredibly cool. But again, the bathroom scene was completely pointless aside from that moment.
Right.
And there are some moments in the movie that are just like that. There's a parade scene later on in the film. Martin just walks with a parade. Actually, that happened because they were filming on the porch and a parade happened to go by and interrupt the scene.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So
why not? Yeah.
So he just walked out into the parade and walked with them for a bit and they filmed it.
Yeah. I sometimes forget how ginormous cars were back then.
Yeah.
And how cheap gas was.
Well, depends on when in the 70s.
Could you imagine pulling up to a gas station and saying, put $1 worth in?
Uh-huh. I used to fill it on 5 when I started driving. Anyway, another thing I really liked was Martin's black and white fantasy segments.
Yes. I love that's how they divide up fantasy and versus reality.
Because he imagines himself as the classic caped, fanged vampire.
Right.
And it kind of shows, his inner monologue and sort of how he views himself as this, romantic figure.
Right from the beginning where he's envisioning this woman that he's about to do this stuff to as this, sweeping gown. And then the reality is she's got her night face on.
Yeah, exactly. and John Amplas, who played Martin, was brilliant. He had just had this quietness about him that was incredibly creepy.
Right. Loved just his exasperation with everything. It's just such a teenage kid sort of thing of just, oh man, really?
And he frequently points out that there is no magic. There's nothing supernatural about it. He bites some garlic at one point. He puts a cross to his face. And he says it's just a sickness. And it makes me wonder, was he just delusional? That could explain why he thought he was 80, why he thought he was a vampire. In addition to, constantly being told that by his family.
Yeah. I love that you could just argue either way and still, that he was just nuts.
And another great thing about the movie is that it makes him sympathetic. We see him rape and kill a woman and drink her blood in the first few minutes of the movie. And we see him do it a few times throughout the movie, but he's still sympathetic.
You're totally rooting for him at the end with the cops chasing and getting in the middle of the gang war and stuff.
That went a little too Keystone Cops for my taste, but
why did he even go to rob the clothing store anyway? Why did he need?
Because he wanted to change clothes, I think, because he had
to change clothes,
blood all over himself.
Yeah. So he goes and steals them from a closed clothing store, but he could have just gotten home in the night and made it home okay after. By his logic, he'd rather have the clean clothes.
Right, yeah. This is a rare case where I would like to see the longer cut. The original version was 2 hours, 45 minutes, and all black and white.
Oh my God. I don't know. That might be too much.
Possibly. I'm just curious about it. But
all black and white?
Yeah.
No.
See, that isn't the part that would put me off. It's the 2 hours, 45 minutes that makes me a little iffy on it.
Well, no, the fact that this was in color and just middle America,
yeah, true, it does help.
Special about it, is what makes this great.
Yeah, that does really help it. Fortunately or unfortunately, Romero said that he doesn't think any copies existed. So, we're never going to see it.
45 minutes is way too much for something like this to carry.
Yeah.
You had a couple of the same arguments held throughout the movie.
True.
And of course, it's just the repetition of family arguments that was going on.
Right.
About whether he should move to some other area to find work or whether, what was just going on in the world or or should we keep an eye on this kid because he's killing people?
And then we get to the scene where he attacks the couple in the house, which was brilliant. I don't know how they kept that as tense and interesting as they did, because it's a long scene.
And of course, you were saying before about the variations before falling unconscious. It took the guy longer.
Yeah, way too long compared to the woman at the beginning, yeah.
Because he didn't have a dose ready for someone that size.
Oh, I didn't think about that. That's why he had to dose him twice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, he was kind of groggy a bit. I mean, he was expecting just the one woman, enough dose for her, maybe. He had it figured out. He opens the door. You? What are you doing here?
And I loved the way he kept them from calling on 911. He found a third phone in the house and just kept hitting the numbers.
Yeah.
That was very clever. And that whole scene made me wonder if the blood drinking is kind of a fetish for him.
Oh, definitely. Well, at least I'm in the camp that he was not really a vampire.
So am I. Yeah.
That he was just was just a mental case. And so was his cousin.
Oh, yeah. Well, his cousin, was just bought into the old legend.
Which may have been his grandfather in reality.
Probably. Yeah, that's a good point. One of my original what have I learned, which I'm not going to go with, so I can say it.
All right.
Was superstition kills, which really is kind of the lesson of the movie. Martin and his grandfather / cousin both bought into this superstition about Martin being a vampire. So Martin went out and killed people because he believed he was a vampire. Instead of his family getting him the treatment that he needed for his mental illnesses.
That's a great point. Because, right, yeah, they could have saved themselves in the end. Yeah.
It was a bit odd to hear the movie reference The Exorcist.
I loved it.
I did too, but it was weird because The Exorcist was just a few years earlier.
And wasn't it was 73. Romero himself that was in that role?
Was it? Okay, I didn't notice.
He was one of the priests.
Okay.
I can't recognize him as young.
I'll have to go back though. I'll have to go back and check it out.
I thought that was Romero himself talking about how he loved it and how the older priest that watched it thought it was all bullshit.
Right, because they were doing it wrong.
They were doing it wrong.
And there was a line in the exorcism scene, and all of your fell companions. Apparently, fell was a thing before Warcraft. I thought the word was created for the game.
Huh.
Now, I was a bit worried for Martin when Christina left. That's
right.
His cousin's granddaughter, who is about Martin's age, actually slightly older than Martin. She decides to get out of the family because it's just getting too toxic, and shit's gonna go down. And I was really worried because that's the point where I started to think, okay, something bad is gonna happen to Martin.
Right. Something bad is gonna happen to him. Of course, he's just not sure to what scale it's gonna happen to him.
And then he starts getting his life together. He gets into a real relationship and kicks the blood habit briefly. And then he decides, okay, he needs another fix.
Right. And he's also made it clear that he's not at his A game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Was that the couple in the house, or was that another hit at this point? No, it was another hit. It was the bums.
Right.
It was 2 bums that he finds that he kills and drinks from. And then he runs off and breaks into this little department store and steals clothes.
He needs a change of clothes, right?
Yeah, because he was all bloody. Instead of, as you pointed out, just running back home.
No one was going to say anything. We just left,
Uh-huh. And he had a little bit of blood on his collar. It's not like it was all over his shirt.
Right.
But, of course, the silent alarm, or not so silent alarm, goes off when he breaks the window. And somehow he wanders out of the store with the cops chasing him into, like, a drug deal or something.
Yeah, there was some sort of gang activity going on. So he gets in the middle of this crossfire between the cops and the gang.
Well, no, the cops didn't know about the gang until they got there and saw, okay, there's this gang as well. And the gang started unloading on the cops, and Martin's just hiding there.
Right.
The gang and the cops go to war, and Martin just slips out. And then I think we saw the same guy in the bathroom, the same guy that struck the match on his jacket.
Yeah, they do show him again.
And a lot of the supporting players were actually friends and family of the cast and crew. It was made on a very small budget, which is a common theme with Romero's work.
Right. This was a lot of people. This is their only film, pretty much.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, the guy that plays Martin comes back and does some cameos in other Romero movies.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, this was it for him.
And all along, he's talking to this DJ, as we mentioned. And the DJ was a great device because it kind of gave Martin a confessor.
Right.
It gave him a therapist, effectively, to talk to.
Someone to deliver the soliloquy also,
Mm-hmm, yeah. And then we get to an ending that we're not going to spoil. I'm going to cut that part out of the show earlier when I accidentally did. But it was incredibly sudden.
Right. You should have seen coming, but you didn't.
Yeah.
And then roll credits. You're like, wow, that's it.
And again, back to the sympathetic thing. I really don't know how to feel about the ending.
Right.
Like, was it a good thing or a bad thing?
It's kind of, it's ironic.
Yeah, true. That too. Oh, by the way, British synth-pop avant-garde band Soft Cell, best known for Tainted Love, wrote a 10-minute and 16-second song called Martin, inspired by the film. It's on Spotify. I listened to it the other night. The first 4.5 minutes are great. And then it's a dance track, so they just want to keep the beat going for a while with some sound effects, and it gets a little monotonous. But the first half of it is great.
They didn't go into like "Baby, Where Did Our Love Go"?
No, they didn't switch songs. Okay. No, I actually listened to a few other songs of theirs. Very interesting band. Tainted Love really doesn't do them justice.
Nah.
There's a song on their first album called "Sex Dwarf."
Yes, I heard that. I heard "Sex Dwarf."
So yeah, check out Soft Cell, that song specifically. But yeah, Soft Cell was very interesting. I need to hear more. On to sequels and remakes.
On to sequels and remakes.
On May 1st, 2010, producer Richard P. Rubinstein, producer of this movie, announced his intentions to produce a remake of the film.
Without Romero,
this was 7 years ago.
Okay.
It's probably dead in the water now that Romero's gone. And it was 7 years ago that he said this, so.
No pun intended.
Oops. It's.
What?
No, literally, really, no pun intended on that. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay. It's not going to happen at this point.
Wait a minute. Are they sure? Has anyone actually checked the body?
How many people have made that joke?
I don't know. I'd like to think I was the only one.
No. Oh, all incidentally, right. I was looking up the Of the Dead movies, and I thought I'd seen all of them, but I missed one.
He's come out with a bunch of them.
There's 6 of them in the main canon.
Yeah.
I'd seen 5. There's one Diary of the Dead right in the middle. I think it's between Day and Land of the Dead that I skipped somehow. I didn't know about it. I again highly recommend those movies. Particularly, obviously, Night of the Living Dead, Dawn of the Dead, and Land of the Dead. The next to the last one, John Leguizamo and Dennis Hopper are in it.
Wow.
And it actually has a budget. It's like a real mainstream, like well-produced film. Still need to see Diary. I don't know how I missed that one. I kind of don't think they should remake this.
No.
This is great as is. Leave it alone.
This is just so 70s,
Yeah.
It's really of its time. It sums up that whole uncertainty and
right.
just
that's true.
What's going on in Western Pennsylvania? The Steels just all leaving.
Mm-hmm. And that's really a hallmark of Romero as well. There was always a ton of social commentary in his work, and this is no exception.
It's funny because you were saying you saw a lot of this about like the superstition killing them, but in
maybe that's my personal bias,
You could almost also sense there's kind of a disconnection between any sort of spirituality.
True.
At the same time, too. Enough for them to believe some crazy shit like this.
Yeah. And to kind of follow the letter of the law and lose all compassion.
Yeah. And really, not taking care of each other as a family. Because, wouldn't that problem have been solved with with his granddaughter.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't remember the other actor's name. If they had just all lived together, I mean...
The boyfriend, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Arthur is a character.
Arthur.
And it was played by Tom Savini, who did the effects makeup on this. This was the first collaboration between the two.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, Savini, best known for doing the effects on Friday the 13th, the original. The effects makeup, I mean.
His name was familiar. I just
He's done quite a few well-known horror movies over the years. And he's done quite a bit of acting, too.
Well, right. And I was trying to think, wow, I don't remember him as an actor as much.
But yeah, he's done quite a bit. Really... Actually, I think he's got more credits as an actor than as an effects makeup guy.
Really?
Yeah. On the Brains?
On the Brains.
I absolutely loved it. It's just the question it leaves open and the moral implications of that and the ending and making him sympathetic and all of it. It's flawless. I'm going 5.
If I didn't have to go to sleep right now, I would watch this again. And the debate just talking about this is a really interesting movie.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an easy 5.
All right, and what have we learned?
We learned that the power of Christ compels you.
And I learned that you weren't supposed to be there. You weren't supposed to be there. You weren't supposed to be there. You weren't supposed to be there.
I like he was trying to play it off at the first, like, oh, hey, sorry about that. And she's like, I don't know this guy.
Yeah.
Like, wait, what? He has to talk his way out of it when in reality, who the fuck is this guy in our
right? Exactly.
house?
Oh, and I should mention that this is the first part of a tribute trilogy. It was going to be a 2-parter. We had to crowbar in Romero. Of course, we had to pay tribute to Romero. And so next week we'll be reviewing Moonraker, our Roger Moore tribute. If we're going to do a Bond movie, this had to be it.
Why did it take us so long to get to Roger Moore? Didn't he go like a while ago?
Well, because we had a ton of things lined up, as well as like 4 other tributes.
All the people who died.
I haven't thought of that song in ages. All right, so until then, go to zombietakeout.com. It's getting better. I've broken a lot of the images so you can see the alt tags at least to see the ratings. I'll have the rec list fixed up in a couple of weeks.
I've done a little bit on some of the spreadsheet, but it's gonna be a while.
On the sidebar, which still works, you'll find links to find us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and YouTube. Links to subscribe via RSS and iTunes. Please leave us a rating and a review on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. And if you enjoy the show, spread the word. Give us a little word of mouth. Of course, we appreciate all of the listeners we have, but more would be better. You also find the movie list. Might as well. You'll see what we have coming up. The links, again, slightly broken. And that's in order through the science fiction double feature, Forbidden Planet and The Day the Earth Stood Still.
All right.
And, of course, the recommendations list. I had a feeling this was going to make the rec list. I wasn't sure exactly if you were going to go 5. I'm glad you did. This is our 4th double 5 of the year.
Wow.
It's been an exceptionally good year for that. And I think I have like 6 or 7 5s this year. My end of the year list is going to be real easy. At least my top list.
Mazes and Monsters?
I think that's clearly going to be at the... I think that we're going to agree on the worst of the year for once. We probably won't agree on the best, but we will agree on the worst. At least I hope it doesn't get any worse. Of course, you can email us on zombietakeout@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 414-368-CTO1 or for the alphanumeric challenge, 414-368-9861. Of course, always remember that you'll always be calling from the middle of Milwaukee, and until next time, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life, there you
What's
are.
up?
Rest in peace, Mr. Romero.
Yes.
Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Good night.
And I only have one title, but it's good.
Okay.
Nosferatu Dynamite.
I, of course, have, WZUP.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, because of the true who we're tribute to, it's, are they sure? Have they checked the body? Or, in regards to this movie, that 70s vampire.
Ooh. Ooh. Oh, I like that and Nosferatu Dynamite equally.
Yeah. Yeah, they both really nail it, don't they?
You want odds or evens?
Depends. Can you do like a Vote for Pedro shirt on a vampire?
I already have the artwork. It's a radio with a stake through it.
I was gonna say, if you could do a Vote for Pedro shirt on a vampire, you fucking hilarious.
I'm gonna roll a d20. Want odds or evens?
Okay. I'll take odds.
All right. 14.
Nosferatu
Nosferatu Dynamite.
Nosferatu Dynamite it is.